Boy, we're doing some juggling today. Hi, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show. Let me turn on my neon. Alright. Anyhow, yeah, so that last film was from the Oregon Archive. We scanned that for them. Silent film about hunting wild turkey. We watch old 16mm films from our collection, and I have a film set up on the telecine right there. It's a film that reflects on my life. Basically, it's called Poison Plants, and it talks about poison oak and poison ivy, which are banes to my existence. I'm very allergic to them, and if I actually touch it, I get horrible blisters, and I usually have to get a steroid shot. So here's Poison Plants.
World of plants, always beautiful, sometimes dangerous. This is poison oak. If you touch it, this plant may give you a painful skin rash.
93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100. Ready or not, here I come.
The oleander bush seems good to hide behind, but the plant is poisonous. Chewing an oleander leaf can make you ill.
Okay, throw it. Come on, throw it good. All right, that's right. Throw it. Throw it. Why do I have to do that? I think that's poison oak. Come on, let me try to get it.
Touching this ball might cause a skin rash because poisonous oils from the plant may now be on it. Look carefully and remember what poison oak is like. Then avoid it. This is poison ivy. It, too, contains an oil that can give you a skin rash. Beware of it. Another plant that can cause your skin to break out in a rash is the poison sumac. Avoid its leaves, stems, and blossoms. The oil particles from these plants are so tiny, they can even be carried by wind or smoke. In some cases, skin irritations from these plants can be so serious that a doctor is needed, or even a hospital. As soon as you suspect that you have been near a poisonous plant, wash with strong soap. This helps prevent skin irritation. Here's one way accidents can happen. The bead in the girl's mouth is a dried rosary bean. It's highly poisonous. It could kill you. People use rosary beans as ornaments and don't realize they are dangerous.
Wendy, I'd like to ask about a hot dog. I have enough hot dog, but I don't have enough skewers. see. Oh. Well, maybe I'll use a twig. Good idea. Be sure to get a green twig, because if you get a brown twig, it might burn. Okay, I'll go get a good green twig. Wendy has a stick. Oh, that's fine. Here's some hot dogs. Aren't hot dogs good? Yeah, they're delicious.
Is it really a good idea to use a branch for barbecuing? Sometimes not. This branch came from this oleander bush. Not only are the oleander leaves poisonous, so are the twigs and branches. When poisoning is suspected, the best thing you can do is drink lots of water. Then see a doctor as soon as possible.
Come on! Hurry up! I found berries over here! I found some red ones, orange ones.
Thousands of different kinds of berries grow wild. Many are good to eat. Some can make you sick.
Does anybody know what kind of berries these are?
These are yellow currant berries. They are harmless and tasty, and are among the wild berries that are safe to eat.
Oh, here's some more. They're all over.
You can learn to recognize which berries are edible and enjoy picking them fresh from the bushes.
Some more up in there.
But you have to know what you're doing.
Hey, look out for the mushroom.
I didn't know there was any here.
Neither did I.
There's some more over there.
Let's go pick them.
Yeah. Ew,
They look different than the other ones. Those other ones are different. This one's bigger. Different colors.
Yellow and orange and pink.
That one's only brown. Light brown.
These are different shades.
Hi, Dad. Look, Dad. Look what we got.
Yeah. Hey, guys, you want to be careful when it comes to mushrooms. The same variety of mushroom growing in one spot can be poisonous. Growing in another spot, it can be all right. You just can never tell about mushrooms. If you like them, get them in a restaurant or a grocery store, but don't pick them. They can be poisonous. Hey, guys. You know what this is?
No?
What's it look
Looks like an onion to
That's
me.
right. That's the problem. It does look like an onion. Actually, it's a daffodil bulb. Remember we had them growing here last year? I'm just digging them up for next season. Somebody might see this and think it's an onion and eat it. That'd be a problem because it's poisonous.
Is there any other poisonous plants in the yard?
Oh, yeah, there are probably quite a few here in the yard. Here, we'll take a look at some of them over here. Now, these are tomatoes, which are okay. The leaves are something else. These leaves over here, you can use those in cooking, and it'd be all right. That's the basil plant. The tomato leaves are actually poisonous, even though the tomatoes themselves are okay. So you got to be careful. Here's a poisonous plant that's easy to miss. It's Jimson weed. Not only the fruit, but the leaves and the stem are all poisonous. In fact, if you were to rub it against your hand and then rub your hands across your face or against your eyes, you would cause a skin irritation and your eyes would water. This is belladonna. Originally, this came from Europe and was used as a medicine. But if you were to eat one of these berries that's growing wild, it can make you very sick.
Many people don't suspect that even plants from nurseries can be poisonous. The Jerusalem cherry, for example. Its leaves and unripe fruit are poisonous. The poinsettia, the rhododendron, the azalea, the lantana, and the nightshades. Just chewing any part of them will make you sick. The castor bean shrub decorates many gardens and parks. The seeds of the castor bean are especially dangerous. The seeds, if eaten, are so poisonous they can be fatal. To enjoy nature and be safe, you just have to remember a few simple things.
Some plants can really irritate your skin. Never put any plant or part of a plant into your mouth. Remember, trees can be poisonous too.
Picking berries is a lot of fun, if you know what kind of berries you're eating. They may look pretty, but that doesn't mean they're good to eat.
If you like mushrooms, buy them in a grocery store or get them in a restaurant. But don't just pick them. They could be poisonous.
The more you know about plants, the more you can enjoy nature and have a really good time.
To kill you. Anything green in your yard, man, don't even touch it. Any berries, forget it. It's really kind of these are cautionary films, and of course they pull out only the things that are dangerous. So it just seems like that guy's yard is just filled with dangerous, poisonous plants. This next film is a NASA film. And I believe this was made before we actually landed on the moon. So it talks about, it's part of a news digest thing that they would release periodically every so many months about what they were working on and what's coming up technology-wise and all that. And this is about the instrument unit. Enjoy.
The Apollo Saturn V consists of two major parts, the launch vehicle and the spacecraft. Between them is a small ring-like section called the instrument unit. It's the brain and nerve center of a huge launch vehicle. Made of thin-wall aluminum honeycomb, the unit is nearly 22 feet in diameter, the same as the third stage of the Saturn V, but only 3 feet high. Yet it supports the Apollo spacecraft and contains the electronic and electrical equipment required for navigation, guidance, and control of the entire vehicle. It also carries equipment for temperature control, electric power for the launch vehicle, instruments measuring flight operations, and communications with the ground. The emergency abort and destruct systems are monitored in the ring as well. The instrument unit's sensors are constantly at work determining the vehicle's position and velocity. In other words, navigating the Saturn V through the atmosphere and in space. The guidance system compares this information with the planned flight plan and determines what corrections have to be sent to the Saturn's engines and telemetered to Earth. The varying conditions of flight make guidance necessary. A standard flight is influenced by winds aloft, engine performance, and a number of other factors. The guidance system constantly corrects for these changing conditions, relying on the information from navigation. It plots a new flight path, so the spacecraft will arrive at its destination, traveling at a specific speed, and at the same time, arriving in the shortest possible time with the least possible expenditure of fuel. As can be seen in the test stand, control, the method of physically altering the course of the vehicle, is achieved in most cases by gimbaling or moving the engines. This corrects for variations observed by the guidance and navigation systems and steers the vehicle in its selected flight path. The 4 outboard engines on both the first and second stages are gimbaled. The instrument unit computes and controls the direction of the engines and of their thrust. The third stage has only one main engine, also gimbaled to provide directional control of thrust. However, to keep the vehicle from rolling, 6 smaller engines are used to stabilize the craft. Here, too, it's the instrument unit that controls and coordinates these engines. In lunar flight, once the spacecraft is on its way to the moon, the command and service module separates from the lunar module, turns, and docks with the lunar module. The third stage and instrument unit are jettisoned, their job completed. The brain of the Saturn V, the translator between man and machine, navigator, helmsman, and computer. All of these jobs are done by the small ring called the instrument unit.
Were short little blips that I think they released for television. You know, little fillers. There's lots of those. I mean, I don't have many more of those, but I do have a lot of the aeronautic and space report things that they would release. I think quarterly or twice a year, something like that, would talk about different things that NASA was up to. And those, they did those. They probably are still doing those nowadays. Let's watch a wonderful film about nutritional quackery, and let's see if anything has changed in how we talk about nutrition and how certain people, how one doctor in their weird trick is comparable to about what we're about to see. Enjoy.
Remember, we are what we eat.
Of all the peoples on this spinning sphere, probably no other people in history have ever had it so good as the American people. Almost everyone would agree that our food supply is unsurpassed in volume, variety, and nutritional value, and that we Americans can hardly help being well-nourished if we eat a diet containing a variety of common foods readily available on the market. Yet, despite the abundance and the quality of our food supply, there are those who persistently campaign to undermine public confidence.
The American people today are suffering from mass malnutrition. Our soil is depleted, our rivers defiled, our forests denuded, and the nutritive value of our food supply destroyed.
Obviously, these minority dissenters certainly come on strong. But is what they say founded on fact or fallacy? Fact or fantasy? Let's find out together. We checked these facts and theories with the United States Food and Drug Administration. This vital consumer protection agency of the federal government is supported by your tax dollars. But first, let's hear a little more of what our food faddist friend has to say.
Most diseases today have their roots in faulty dieting. Believe me, friends, what we eat is tremendously important. As one ancient philosopher put it, we are what we eat. You see, our diet governs the chemical balance of our body. And when our diet is unsatisfactory, the chemical balance is upset, and we become ill.
Dr. Rosalind Alphenslater, a nationally noted authority in the field of nutrition, expressed her opinion in these matters.
Well, obviously, there is some truth to what has been said, but there are also very many dangerous omissions. We know that there are diseases which can arise from nutritional deficiencies, like vitamin deficiencies and mineral deficiencies, but these are extremely rare in the United States today. You know, if people were to eat a balanced diet from foods which are readily available in a supermarket, there would be no problem with undernutrition. Do you know what our #1 public health problem is today? It's overnutrition rather than undernutrition. Overnutrition leading to overweight, obesity.
Now, one reason why we are suffering from nutritive insufficiency today in our country is that our soil has become depleted. Depleted in many instances by the use of artificial fertilizers. Now, it should be fairly obvious to you, my friends, that depleted soils will produce depleted crops. And these, in turn, will result in deficient diets. Remember this chain of cause and effect. Depleted soils, depleted crops, deficient diet.
Research shows that poor soil will produce a smaller amount of a food crop, but the nutritive value is not significantly affected. The American farmer spends almost $2 billion annually on chemical or commercial fertilizers, which are applied in various ways to the soil. Chemical fertilizers are basically products of nature, which man has simply processed to make more readily available to plants. Plants take in a given nutrient in the same chemical form, whether it comes from organic matter or from a bag of chemical fertilizer. The evidence on the orchards, ranches, and farms of the United States indicates that chemical fertilizers, used as recommended, will not injure the physical, chemical, or biological condition of the soil. Crop production is 70% higher per acre today than in 1920. Chemical fertilizers represent one of the most important advances ever made toward providing plenty for the peoples of the world.
And really, friends, to obviate the problem at its source is almost impossible. For our foods are contaminated during the growing cycle in the fields. Modern growers, in line with accepted scientific practices, are spraying our crops with pesticides, poisons. Oh, yes, these lethal chemicals will kill bugs and insects, and they'll do the same to us. That's the one bug that has survived, the bugaboo of progressive scientific farming.
Pesticides or insecticides have been used on food crops for years. A pesticide is a chemical or a mixture of chemical substances used to destroy pests which infest our crops. They are applied in many ways. In the southwestern United States alone, some 75 to 80 different pesticides are presently in use. Entomologists and agricultural economists tell us that it is not possible to grow enough food to feed our population if pesticides are not used. Yet these substances are poisonous. They may be injurious to man as well as insect. If they are necessary in the production of food, strong safeguards must be set up to protect the public from consuming excessive residues of these substances. The use of pesticides and the amounts of residues permitted on raw agricultural commodities, like this lettuce, are regulated by federal law. The enforcement of this law, the Miller Pesticides Amendment, is the tough task of the Food and Drug Administration and allied agencies of state and local governments. Random samples are brought back to the laboratory for careful analysis to determine whether the levels of pesticide residues are within the permitted safe tolerance levels. These levels are set only after a determination of an individual's total possible exposure to all the different pesticides used on the various food crops, and are set substantially lower than the maximum quantity recognized as safe. After grinding, a specified amount of the pulverized sample is spooned out and weighed. A known volume of organic solvent is added, and then it is placed in a Waring blender for mixing. After 2 minutes, the mixture is filtered and the amount of extract is measured to determine volume of recovery. This measured volume of recovered extract is then washed repeatedly with salt water and drained off. The salt cleans, but does not take away any pesticide. At this stage, the recovered extract is poured for further cleaning into an adsorption cleanup column, which works on the same general principle as a car's oil filter. After being completely washed through the column, the solvent is drained off and then placed for evaporation in a steam bath until a very small volume is left. But this solvent is still representative of the entire random sample of lettuce. An accurately measured portion of this is then used in other determinations to identify the pesticide used and also determine whether the levels of pesticide residue are within the permitted safe tolerances. This is one such confirming test for a specific pesticide, essentially a distillation test, whereby the yellowish sulfur atoms in the pesticide are converted to equivalent amounts of blue dye. The more the pesticide residue, the darker the dye. By measuring the dye photometrically, the amount of pesticide in the lettuce can be determined exactly. Should the amount prove excessive, the entire shipment of lettuce would be subject to seizure and destruction.
Much of our problem of poor nutrition is also directly attributable to present popular practices of food processing. Our vegetables are peeled, washed, scraped, crushed, pulped, diced, squashed, mangled, destroyed. Our grains are polished, ground, refined, denuded. We are robbed of the value. This is the great diet robbery of our time. We must rise to fight for survival. I urge you to rouse yourselves, and in the words of that old hymn, rally round the banner.
This food processing plant, typical of many others, reflects nothing half so much as the ingenuity, efficiency, and integrity of the American food processing industry. With modern methods, there is greater percentage recovery, that is, less waste in the field, less handling and bruising of the product in processing, more repeated washings, better sanitation controls, and stricter supervision. There is also much greater volume and flow, and therefore, ultimately, much greater value and variety of product to the consumer. Some methods of food processing do result in removing or reducing some of the vitamins and minerals contained in foods. But this has been grossly exaggerated. The science of food technology has also devised methods of maintaining, restoring, and adding nutritional values to our foods. Results show that American foods, processed by scientifically guided methods, are the finest in the world and provide adequate nutrition.
And then, to cleverly conceal or cover up their treachery, our food manufacturers add huge doses of artificial additives and talk glibly of enriched and fortified products. The plain truth is that these additives are chemicals which are foreign to our constitutions and usually harmful, some even poisonous. We are really the victims of a double-barreled hoax.
This simply is not true. Additives, too, are carefully checked and controlled under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. With the spectrophotometer, additives can be identified and determined. A standard split beam of ultraviolet light is bounced off a known or reference solution and an unknown or test solution. The graph records the difference in the absorption rate of both substances. After identifying the additive, its purity and potency can also be computed by comparing the graph patterns and the character of the curve of the two substances. Food additives have brought about great improvements in the American food supply and are used for many interesting and useful purposes. This experiment demonstrates the usefulness of a preservative or antioxidant. Rancid oil contains peroxides. The chemist can demonstrate the presence of and the amounts of the peroxides in the rancid oil by adding various chemicals to both oils. The depth of the color indicates the degree of rancidity. The oil with the preservative or antioxidant added remained fresh. The other, without an additive, turned rancid. There are many classes of additives. This demonstration illustrates the usefulness of an emulsifier. Emulsifiers are used in many bakery, confectionery, and other products. If you were making your own salad dressing, for example, you would need to mix vinegar and oil. You might shake or stir them, or mix them in a high-speed blender, as the chemist does in this experiment. However, without adding an emulsifier to homogenize your dressing, as commercial producers do, you would find that when allowed to stand, the oil and vinegar in your salad dressing would soon separate, as clearly demonstrated here. And there are many other kinds of useful food additives, like the anti-caking agent in common table salt, which allows the salt to flow freely. FDA scientists are experts in detecting and measuring additives in food. Their constant vigilance, combined with high industry standards, is our security.
I have demonstrated that our present sources of food supply are contaminated. Our foods are raised in depleted soils. They are sprayed with poisonous pesticides. They are denuded of most of their nutritive value through so-called progressive processing methods. And then they are doctored with chemical additives. Little wonder our people are suffering. By contrast, our products are produced and processed quite differently. We grow them organically, using no toxic sprays or powders. Our products are really nature's own. We have but unlocked her secrets. We believe that we can demonstrate their superiority. Apply the empirical test. If you write to us today, we will send you a free sample of these natural vitamins. Remember, we are what we eat.
In that, he's right. Yet too many of us, like this young man, are careless in what we eat and how we eat, wolfing down hastily grabbed snacks without stopping to consider whether or not we are eating a balanced diet. But if our young friend included in his diet a variety of common foods readily available in the average grocery store or supermarket, would his diet be nutritionally adequate? In an effort to answer this question, the Food and Drug Administration conducted total diet studies in which they sought to assess the nutritional adequacy of a moderate cost diet as recommended for boys 16 to 19. Food samples were collected in markets across the country at 3-month intervals. These studies, conducted by the Food and Drug Administration, were originally designed to check for radioactivity and pesticide residue levels as well as nutritional content. Values found for protein, fat, and most of the essential vitamins were close to those estimated from food composition tables and without exception provided more than the recommended dietary allowances for boys in that age group. The total diet studies confirmed conclusively that foods readily available in grocery stores and supermarkets, when properly selected and prepared, will provide a diet containing adequate amounts of all needed nutrients. Proper selection of foods would include dairy products, meats of various kinds, cereals and breads, fresh and canned fruit, and vegetables. The work of these scientists has shown that except for persons with special medical needs, there is no scientific basis for recommending routine use of dietary supplements. A varied or balanced diet is the key to good health. Pills are a poor substitute for a balanced diet. So it's time we threw the pills, potions, and preparations away. Left the quacks quacking, or yakking, and began to eat a normal, balanced diet. In America today, there is absolutely no valid reason for nutritionally poor diets. There is a rich supply of wholesome, nutritious food readily available. Every grocery store is a health food store.
In fact, do you know what our biggest problem is today? It's overweight. It's overnutrition, which leads to obesity. This is the #1 public health problem today.
It's so interesting to see some of that being talked about now. And, you know, certainly there have been some shenanigans regarding pesticides. Monsanto, I'm looking at you. Yeah, I once, a doctor friend of mine once said that we have some of the most nutritious pea in the world because of all the supplemented vitamins that our body just can't process. It's too much, so it just, you know, comes out in our pee. So the next film I have set up is another government film. I think that I was in my brain, I was on a roll and thinking about like, oh, I'll show this, oh, I'll show this, and I'm like, oh, I guess I need to show as many things as possible. So we watched NASA, we watched the FDA, and now we are going to watch the Department of Civil Defense. This is safety measures in a public shelter. Enjoy.
The value of a community shelter can be greatly enhanced if the shelter has a plan for safety. The responsibility for safety is that of the manager and his safety team. Shelters should be inspected regularly to see that safety equipment and supplies are in place, in operating condition, and ready to support the plan. 3 important elements of shelter safety are fire prevention and fighting, maintenance of order, and emergency escape. This manager is safety conscious. You can tell by the emphasis he gives it in his shelter operations plan. Note that in his operations chart, in the staff column, organization of a safety watch is shown as one of the first things to do. Then plan emergency action and drill. Below that, conduct safety inspections and periodic safety and evacuation drills. Safety is vital in this shelter. It should be. Safety precautions begin in the first moments of occupancy. Provide a container in which to store personal items collected from occupants that may be potential hazards. List the items with the owner's names and tag them. This systematic procedure will make a good impression. It demonstrates the presence of authority and organization. Collect personal items as early as possible and place them in the container to show that they will be carefully protected. Useful items, such as food, flashlights, or radios, may be turned in and will supplement the shelter stocks for the good of all. Special foods and medicines should be stored to prevent loss or damage and given as needed to the owner. Security personnel should be trained individuals who can control groups effectively or handle persons who ignore the rules. They will supervise the admission of occupants during the entry phase and prevent free movement either in or out of the shelter, especially during the dangerous radiation period. Good security is a positive contribution to morale, since the great majority of people desire law and order. Proper ventilation, temperature, and humidity are vital to shelter safety. They are the responsibilities of the health and sanitation team. 3 special instruments may be provided by the local community to help the teams do their job. One is the hygrometer for determining effective temperature and humidity. Others are the oxygen and carbon dioxide indicators. Shelter safety can be improved by taking appropriate actions when indicated by these instruments. The health and sanitation team also is responsible for first aid to the injured. It should include members who know how to handle casualties. The federal government provides a medical kit of essentials to treat illness and injuries. This kit and any other supplies provided by the community for more serious casualties should be checked regularly. The function of the safety team is to see that the shelter population does not fall victim to preventable hazards such as fire, fumes, smoke, poor ventilation, or collapse of the shelter. To do the job, the safety team needs equipment and trained personnel. Men with engineering and building maintenance experience should be organized pre-attack and made familiar with the potential hazards of their designated shelters, so that in emergencies they may go into action with a minimum of delay. Their tools should be chosen to fit the potential hazards of the particular shelter. Shelter accidents may force shelter occupants into relatively unprotected areas temporarily. When it is safe to return to the shelter, the safety team should be competent to help RADEF personnel decontaminate the occupants and speed up reentry. The collapse of a building overhead may leave shelter occupants largely unhurt but trapped. Here again, trained personnel enlisted in advance, experts in damage control, and firemen with tools can hold off further damage and injury to people until additional help can be summoned. Useful items may include an attention getter, such as whistle or powered megaphone, to advertise your presence for outside help when all else fails. An ever-present danger in shelters is fire. All shelters should be inspected pre-attack to determine the required extinguishers to fight fire and to note their types, sizes, quantities, and proper locations for use. Extinguishers should be strategically placed throughout the shelter for ready use, although in many places it may be better to store them at a central point to protect against loss or damage. If extinguishers are available in the building near the shelter, they should be identified for use in the shelter when needed. See that directions for use are posted prominently. Shelter occupants should be able to fight fires effectively and can with simple training. Extinguishers should be chosen to fight the potential hazards in the shelter. No one extinguisher is best for all types of fires. This dry chemical extinguisher is designed for electrical and oil fires and surface fires. In deep rubbish fires, the soaking effect of water is better. The soda acid extinguisher is familiar to many people and is easy to use. However, the extinguishing agent is water, and so should not be used on live electrical fires or flaming liquids, oil, fat, or gasoline. The stirrup is ideal for shelters because it functions indefinitely, so long as there is a constant source of water. If running water is available, a hose that will reach all parts of the shelter is desirable. It should have a spray nozzle to make it suitable for oil fires. Don't use it with live electrical fires. But do not depend solely on hose, as water pressure may drop, leaving the shelter without fire protection. Inspect extinguishers regularly for broken, clogged, or damaged nozzles and hoses. Look for leaks or corrosion. Protect water extinguishers from freezing. Of course, the best fire protection is prevention. Provide sand buckets for cigarette disposal and reduce every fire hazard to a minimum. When the shelter is occupied, do not permit entry of unnecessary fire hazards that would defeat the fire safety provided by the safety team. Local governments are responsible for supplying security, extrication, and firefighting equipment, and for their proper safeguarding and maintenance. Prepare an inventory list of all equipment. Indicate when inspections are made and that corrective action has been taken when required. With this personal inspection, this manager knows that his shelter is ready for use, and he knows that his safety team is competent. Its members are from town police, fire and rescue squads, from construction crafts and civil engineering and safety groups. The team knows the potential hazards in this shelter, has established rules, conducted drills, gotten advice, coordinated with the maintenance teams, and incorporated the results of their work in the shelter operations plan. This shelter, if the emergency comes, will be as well protected against the hazards from within as it is against the hazards from without.
I can check that gear in a minute, so don't touch anything, okay? Hey! Get down from there! Now! Hey! Turn it over!
What if it bumped that control by accident? You'd be mincemeat by now. What have I told you? You don't work on equipment when the engine's running.
Well, I told him not to touch anything. All right, I guess I wasn't thinking.
You weren't thinking. You mean you'll work on engines and machinery and not think of your own personal safety? Here, shake hands with danger.
Shake hands with danger. Meet a man you ought to know. I used to laugh at safety. Now they call me Three-Fingered Joe. I was young and feisty, never did things by the book. Just let me get my toolbox and I'll take myself a look. I climbed up on a dozier with my mechanic's pride. Said, you can keep it running, friend, while I poke around inside. Shake hands with danger, meet a guy you ought to know. I used to laugh at safety, now they call me Three-Fingered Joe. Although I learned a lesson, I forgot it soon enough. The nicks and burns and scratches showed the young ones I was tough. Till another morning I was grinding on some steel. My other hand got careless and fed my skin into the wheel. Shake hands with danger, step right up and say hello. Grinding wheels and metal are what made me Three-Fingered Joe. I've seen mechanics burning and I've seen them take a fall just to save themselves a minute. I've seen them lose it all. I've watched them courting trouble, seen them take a chance and lose. They get careless for a moment and spend a lifetime with the blues. Shake hands with some friends I used to know. Compared to them, I'm lucky to be just Three-Fingered Joe.
Somebody new to the channel asked, why am I showing this remix? Basically, this was commissioned by my wife for my birthday last year, and I like to bust this out when I show a safety film, or a film that talks about safety measures in a public shelter. That's one of the things about this series of civil defense films is the bureaucracy associated with running one of these things, and There's actually films about maintaining that level of bureaucracy, and there's a whole film about how to do a presentation using like overhead projectors and graphs and diagrams, and it's like, oh my god. It's like, yeah, we just had a horrible nuclear apocalypse, and we just want to make sure that we're presenting things in a clear way. Anyhow, I like that song a lot. It was made by a friend of my wife and mine, who's a school teacher, and I was going to try to have him on his when he was tracked out, because he teaches an all-around school, but I missed that window. So hopefully we will find him again in the fall, later in this fall. But anyways, thanks everybody for tuning in today. I put a link if you're interested in Shake Hands with Danger t-shirts, which basically have the logo on an orange shirt that another friend of mine made, which I'm not wearing today, but it works in any situation. It's kind of a fascinating thing. I think you can also get it on mugs too, which might be something I have to do. Speaking of mugs, we love coffee here at AV Geeks, and you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/avgeeks. You can also go to avgeeks.com and see other shows that we have online, and there's DVDs for sale there too. And you know, one way you can kind of help us out is tell the world that you like AV Geeks, and the best way, of course, is telling friends and family, saying like, oh yeah, there's this archive that shows a bunch of their films at lunch. You should check out some of their shows. Another way is you can just hit the like button or the thumbs up button or the subscribe button. All those things also introduce these streams to other people who stumble across it and go, I don't understand what this is. It gives me a great deal of joy when I see somebody commenting like, I don't know what this is. It's like, yay, somebody who has no idea what I do. This is an opportunity. This is a teaching moment. But thanks again for tuning in. We will be back again tomorrow on Wednesday. As always, we ask you to please rewind and love each other, and we will be back tomorrow. Everybody have a good rest of your Tuesday. Take care.